Great. Thanks very much for sticking with us that far. It's my honor to chair this session, to which I've been very much looking forward to, because I am very passionate about political parties, as you can imagine. And it's great that I have three people with me who have different perspectives on political parties, but who are also very passionate about it. Let me start with Stefanie Gaismayer, who is the head of the political unit of the ALDE Party, which is the liberal, the umbrella organization, the European Party of the Liberals, and she's based in Brussels. She's Austrian, and so her role is that she is helping, supporting, empowering the member parties of the ALDE parties, of which there are how many?
75 currently. It's always changing up and down a little bit. But
75 in how many countries?
I'm going to check that on the website.
Let me get back to you on this.
40 something, so it's not only EU but also non-EU.
Very good. Approximately, I don't know, 50 something.
40.
A lot.
I think 42. But
yeah. So in some, in some cases you have 2 or even 3 liberal parties in a particular country. So she has
5, up to 5. Georgia has 5.
Really. So she has really the perspective of how a party is structured and organized at the moment, but of course also what they might need for the future, and the future is what we want to talk about today. Joshua Carrington is I say the full word, Chief Technical Officer, because it's still such an exception, the Chief Technical Officer of the Labour Party in the UK. We had actually a session at the last Tech Summit where we said parties need Chief Technical Officers. So very much looking forward to your remarks, what that actually means, and how you go about the technology, and also what you see in your and other parties' future of their political tech and organization. So a very, very warm welcome to you too.
Well, yeah, fantastic. I'm really looking forward to the discussion. And 75 political parties sounds like something to manage, but I have a sense of that in the Labour Party. I think we have about that many factions.
Yeah, so perhaps
it's a little bit like that.
Yeah, it's like on par. I should also say perhaps that Joshua also is a Berliner by heart. Yes. Having lived here for
6 years.
6 years. So
moved back to the UK.
You can ask your question in German. That's actually possible.
Yeah.
And next to me is Jochen König. Jochen König is the founder and CEO of Cosmonauts Kings. It took me actually quite a few years to make the connection between the name and the title of the agency. There is one, think about it. So Jochen is a long-standing party advisor. He's been advising campaigns. He's been advising, of course, also many organizations in the business world. So also looking forward to perhaps making that connection, what is in the future of parties that they can learn perhaps from corporates or also from NGOs. So a very warm welcome, Jochen, to you too. And of course, you've been a long friend of Partisan. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks very much for having me.
Fantastic. So let's get this show on the road. Fanny, if I may start with you, with so many member parties. Again, if we talk about the future political party, perhaps let's start with the present political party. So how are political parties doing at the moment from your perspective? I mean, if you read the news, if you read the surveys, I think one could provocatively say not very well, actually quite bad in many ways. So is the party something that is of the past, or kind of what's happening right now if you look at all your member parties? What are they struggling with? What are they working on?
I think it depends on where you look, right? I mean, if I want to be a pessimist, I'm gonna confirm you in political parties in general are doing bad, like individual political parties are doing bad. The idea of a political party is doing bad because we're losing trust. However, after this week, to be honest, I'm not sure to make any statements on reality anymore. But if we think that we're going to continue that whole democracy business for a while, it for sure is a necessary evil to have political parties. And then I've been sitting here in this room for quite a while this afternoon, and one of my proudest parties and one of my most successful ones is D66, who just came back with a real relevant success. So I'd like to look on the positive side, and looking at them, I think what they've managed in the whole trust crisis and the whole crisis of democracy and crisis of people taking politicians seriously, what they've managed is to actually work on their authentic core and on their branding, on fostering trust towards their electorate, and taking people along with a very, very true and very positive message. I can also name probably more than the positive ones, a lot of negative examples who are prone to, let's see how survival looks for them. But I think looking back at D66 and those examples is that we can still succeed if we really, find the sweet spot of what our, customers, and in that case it's electorates, what our customers actually are looking for in a political party, and actually are adaptable, flexible, and forward-looking enough to maneuver in that ever-changing environment that we're living in.
Thanks. As we are at the Political Tech Summit, and the session topic is build by or collaborate in the age of AI, how is there a pattern, with the more successful political parties in your family, of which there are many, as we heard, 75. So is there a pattern in terms of build or buy? How do they go about their tech stack? And we'll get to the kind of changes later. But can you tell us, is there anything that you spot there?
I think rather than build or buy, the threshold runs between, do I consider AI, tech, whatever it is, tools as so am I able to make them complicit to my needs, or am I becoming complicit to tech? I think that's the rather, and that's on a broader scale that doesn't only apply for political parties, right? That applies for every kind of organization, every kind of endeavor that you want to do in this world, but specifically, obviously, for political parties. As stated already, what we sell is ideas, and what we sell is ideas by authentic communicators. So we could be selling the best idea, the best solution. If you don't trust the messenger, you will not succeed as a political party, nor as any kind of brand. So the goal is to make whatever you're conveying as authentic and trustworthy as people will buy it, right? And our currency is votes, but that accounts for Coca-Cola as well. So what we observe, and this has been mentioned on the stage this afternoon already, what D66 succeeded in, they had the right message, they had the right messenger, and then they made the tools complicit to their goal. And I think, and that is for sure what I observe within my 75-member party, some of them successful, some of them not. The ones who are not successful, they think they throw money or they throw a tool at a problem and that's going to solve itself. But as long as I haven't fixed my inner core, as long as I haven't fixed where I want to go or what I want to achieve with it, you can buy or build your best tools. That's not what, that's not your core product. That'll help you, that can be a vehicle, but that will not be your solution. And I think that's the threshold of observe, because no matter the policy content, like you cannot name what is successful or what not within that membership, because we have different kind of profiles. But for sure, those who are able to self-sufficiently, confidently maneuver an ever-changing environment versus complaining about that ever-changing environment being a burden or an obstacle to your ways, I think that's the success factor.
Thank you. So the messenger is kind of more important than the message, and then comes the tech. You cannot, of course, the best tech won't help you if you have a messenger that's not as effective. Speaking of the Labour Party.
Come on, man.
Sorry. So you are heading a department of 20, 30...
30, yeah. 30 people.
30 people.
Yeah.
So tell us, Josh, what's happening there? And you are building a department. You are heading a department that is quite unique, as I said, across Europe. So can you tell us how you're going about things, how you're doing things, and how you communicate and campaigning with that kind of horsepower that only a few parties, even I think in Germany, have. And looking forward to your remarks.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, it's really interesting, also really interesting to hear what you say about this. I mean, the perspective I have on this is, so my team has 30 people in it. Overall, at the moment, our staff count is about 300 staff, so I make up about 10% of the organization. That's a really big investment, right? That's developers, designers, product people. It's kind of more like a startup than it is like a political party in that sense. And I would say that's definitely the energy that we carry ourselves in the party itself. Now, why have we done this, right? It's really expensive, you know? Developers are not cheap. The reason is, and I wonder if this is like also plays part of what you were talking about in a little sense, because I agree that the messenger is the most important thing, that you can't really get around strong leaders and like that connect with voters. I wonder if it's the electoral system that plays a role here. So in the UK, you have 650 different constituencies, all of which are entirely separate races. And so whoever comes first in that constituency kind of takes it all. There's no proportional element at all. And so what that means is that even if you just win by one vote, that's all that matters, that's the whole game. And so that drives this kind of like heavy competitive environment where for us, we've really invested in our technology as a competitive advantage because all the cephalological research, the research of political scientists shows that campaign effects can account for up to 3% of overall vote share. And that's both by driving up the number of people who vote for us and also driving down the number of people who vote for the opponent. And the reason why I say those two things separately is because when we, through tech, mediated, like whether someone uses one of the apps that my teams build to contact a voter, to knock on their door, to call them, they drive up their propensity to vote. They might not have voted, and they also drive up their propensity to vote Labour. And so it's important to separate those two things out. And I think I would say this is the really critical thing for us, is that we started doing this maybe 10 years ago. I hired the first developer that the Labour Party ever had, and then went on to co-found a company with him called Movement. But I think the really critical thing that I see there is that competitive environment, that pressure. And maybe that's different in Germany on the continent, where you have the kind of more proportional systems. But then again, I look at the German polls and I'm like, it's all in 3%.
Yeah.
Can I ask you before I bring Jochen in? Thank you for your patience, and I'm looking forward to the German perspective. But can you give us some insights into? So, are you building everything yourself? Is it, you know, if you say you're people building apps like, you know, CRM and you know, I know social media monitoring. Is there everything built self-developed? Is there anything that you buy from the market? I know this is some sensitive stuff, yeah. So whatever you feel free to share. But I think it's just interesting because it's a very special model.
Yeah, of course. And just to be clear, I should have said this right at the outset. I don't speak for the Labour Party. We have wonderful politicians who do. So look, I have to be honest. I have a team of 30, right? I'm going to talk my book. I'm an in-house guy. What I do is where I buy the kind of best. Is things like core infrastructure, where I don't want to be responsible for the uptime. So we have this kind of fleet of 20 different apps. Almost all of those are built in-house because we see, you know, in contrast where the US, it has a really sophisticated campaigning, a really deep ecosystem of different political startups. In Europe, you don't have the same demand for canvassing software, for example. So there's not 3 different options that we can go off the shelf and buy that work in the UK for a piece of door knocking software. Although Come On, I think, are doing great work on that front. But actually, like, that's a competitive advantage to own that part. So we own the bits that only we can do. And I can give an example of an app where we feel like this made a real difference to our campaigning in the 2024 election, if that'd be helpful. And I think this goes also to the value of having development in-house, is it allows you to be a lot more iterative. So we started with this project called Persuasion Pathways. And so the concept was there were this specific set of voters, what we call the hero voters, who we really need to persuade, but they were more difficult to persuade. And so we knew that over the course of repeated personalized contact with them, it would be really impactful. And so we started by just having paper forms that volunteers went out and they wrote down physically on a piece of paper. And then we were like, then you took the piece of the form back, you wrote a letter to them that was customized based on what you'd surveyed them, and then the candidate called them up. And so that was all paper-based. You had the paper form, you wrote the letter, you did the call. And then with a developer in-house, then we okay, let's automate this. Let's do this on a big scale. Let's coordinate the letters nationally. Let's coordinate the calling nationally. So then you had a developer who paired up with a field organizer on this project, and they built an app where you take a photo of the paper survey. All that data gets then entered in automatically with AI, and then it queues up and sends you a reminder in a week when you need to send them the letter, and it helps you generate the letter and send that off to the printer. Then a week later, it reminds you, hey, you need to call this person, and you say, hey, do you remember you complained about your park? You have all the notes there. And so it's that kind of iterative process. And what we did when we delivered that is that we found that those people who went through that process versus ones that we just knocked on the door, we found that they were about 50% more likely to vote Labour if they were don't knows before. And so this is the kind of power of when you bring those two things together and having that in-house ability, it allows you to be really innovative and push ahead in your competitive edge. Yeah.
Thank you for that insight, and looking forward to exploring this further. Jochen, if you look at the German state of play when it comes to the political parties and their tech game, now with you being an insider and having advised and having some backstage information, what's the state of play at the moment? How technologically advanced would you say are the German political parties? And is there any party where we would say they are particularly advanced?
The state is not good. And I would also say, beside now, Josh, right, UK, you're not anymore attached to GDPR and so on and TTPA.
Hey.
I would say in general, the state is not good. And when we talk about democratic political parties, right, we talk about not the extremists, especially not the fascists on the right? So, and when I'm thinking about all this conference is that we didn't do a very good job in the last 8-9 years to be on a democratic side and using technology for the advantage for the good. Like we talk about it a lot, but just to be honest, let's look at it, right? And if I break it down and we talk about the future of political party and we talk about the tech stack, and I know Josh has an amazing team, you don't even find 10% of that in some political parties. And the second problem is that we're still stuck in a political culture of campaigning, and what's astonished me is that even in the US it's ramping up, right? So you do the campaign, and then everything goes away. It's done. And we had a conversation earlier, right, where there are political parties who established a system where their experts are moving from the government side to the party side, and then even to the local side, and so on. And the tech stacks are not good. And the thing is, I'm not blaming the people in the organizations, like from social Dems to the Conservatives to the Greens and also to the Liberals. They have great people there, and I know a lot of them for the last 9 years.
But who do you blame?
I blame the political culture and the way how we recruit the leaders in the organizations. That's the problem. Like, if a party in Germany would have the same budget as Josh has and a team of 30 people, and we also had the conversation, and you have everything in place for the messaging, and you can get the message out because 3 people have to sign it off on paper, that's done. And the biggest threat, if we talk more about the future, and if we say about build or buy, it's now buy to build, right? So the acceleration of AI, and let's talk more about what it actually means in using AI, and it was also part of an early conversation, is that companies here, and I also had a software as a service company for political advertising, is if you're small or mid-size, and the product that I built, I don't know, years ago for 300, 500, 600K, I can now do with 2 or 3 developers with Claude AI within less than 3 weeks. So the thing is, if you think about the tech stack of the future, and here a lot of companies talking about CRM and so on, I don't need ready software products in that way in the future maybe. It's more like I need to buy an infrastructure on which I can build up then my own solutions. Like if we think about agentic platforms, right? Like now it's apps, and in the future it will be different agents who play different roles. So all this tech is there. And just to add, let me add one more thing, is that I know we talk about, AI, and let's make it for something good, and we have to find solutions to get our own LLMs and models on running. Come on, forget it. Like, we have to think about how can we use open source models and bring them into an environment that secures the sovereignty? Because no one is talking about the fact that if you're feeding these models, you're feeding them your strategy. And who knows where this data at the end is and where it belongs at the end to. So if you think about implementing AI in an infrastructure that is so sensitive then as a political party, you need to have an infrastructure that is reliable. Maybe you're not running on the best and latest model of Gemini or OpenAI, who cares? Just like the race is going down, but what about the open source models that you can host locally? So AI is not the biggest threat to democracy. The biggest threat are political parties and political institutions that are slow in an environment where propaganda is getting faster and faster. And if you talk about the true human interactions, and you just think about the level of bots that we saw 8-9 years ago, you know, like this whole Russian interference, disinformation campaigns, Cambridge Analytica, Brexit, and so on. So there's a company called Doublespeed. They came on the radar in December. They're funded by Reese Horowitz, the biggest VC investor in the world and part of Facebook. What they do is they have AI bot swarms. So basically, what they do is we have bots that are mimicking humans. So we're going to get to a point where these bots are more like an orchestra to interact with each other, change narratives, and it's not even possible for a human anymore to identify, because with phone farms, they're going to mimic more and more the interaction. So yes, the single source of truth and is based on trust in human interactions, but how are we going to define that in the future? So another thing that I just want to add there is whatever tool we have, as good as we are in canvassing and so on, if someone there outside of campaigning cycles is just pushing their message, and just like, why the hell are the fascists and the right wings doing that so good? Because they don't stick to rules. I'm not saying that we should do that as well, no way, because a democracy is based on rules, and what they're trying to do is to destroy it. But parties need something like an old counter task force to fight disinformation, to proactively, outside also of election cycles, go on. So the tech is there, but we have the problem that the political parties and the culture that is established in there doesn't give us the speed to react on how technology and bad actors are taking advantage of it. And that's a game that we are running behind for the last 9 years. So the last moment where tech was progressive and hopeful on a big scale was Obama. We then had a couple of hit moments, and now we're facing the second technological wave, which is AI, and we should the hell step up our games.
Which we also had at a earlier panel today, that people are still referring to their Obama track record. Because that's the last reference you can make in that regard.
8 to 12, right?
As an innovative campaign that brought change. Now, funny, I'm being aware that some of this is sensitive information, but when we start kind of looking into the near future, do you see parties starting to experiment with AI, with what Jochen said, with agents? Can you give us some insights, not naming names, but give us some ideas what is being done, what is being tried and experimented with at the moment behind the scenes, because you don't necessarily hear about that stuff, but you hear about it here.
I mean, AI, that's such a broad, there's a very broad palette of tools or use cases that you could have, and like starting from the very concrete countermeasure to what you were saying, bots, disinformation, hate speech. I forgot the name right now, but you're gonna help me. Troll.
AI bot swarms? You mean
No, but there's this tool against hate, like with that.
Trollwall.
Yeah, that
was
Trollwall.
Here. Yeah.
So that's very basic, and a lot of our parties think, or politicians, that is rather the.
Thomas will be glad to hear.
Are obviously working with that, and then swarming out of my family, our second biggest mascot that has been mentioned on this stage very often today already is Zoran Mamdani, and I think that campaign, and specifically where he went to use bots, where he went to use AI for his field campaigning or mobilization campaign, where it was very smart that they configured their own bot reactions to whatever reaction you would have on his Instagram page, and then translated to real life, because what they translated it to is actual, activists going on the street working for him. So, so it doesn't always have to be like the huge, revolutionary tool that they're using, but that's what I mean. We have, that is a universal in the human condition, that we constantly live under an ever-changing environment. And whoever is fit for whatever obstacle that comes their way, for whatever challenge that comes their way, and maybe lose that scarcity mindset, that scare that it clearly has. And I mean, I'm actually a very analog person, so clearly I'm not the tech pro here. It scares me as well, but I have trust in those organizations who are ever learning and who try to tackle it from a, first of all, not from that scarcity mindset, second of all, maybe from an abundance mindset, because again, coming back to that trust that and authenticity that we're selling as a product, I can use my whatever ethical way of treating this, my ethical usage of AI, my usage of whatever tech tool there is as a PR tool. I can maybe also an analog example back in the day. So I've had many positions within my home political party in Austria, and I for a couple of years was the head of marketing. So I was in charge of all the election campaigns, including giveaways. And my party cares a lot about the environment, so eventually, we started talking about, we use tax money to buy single-use plastic shit that we give away in the street. That costs, first of all, a lot of tax money, and second of all, that is kind of against our values. But people are used to get something on the street. So I said, like, the most popular two things to give away in the street is pens and lighters for cigarettes, both plastic shit. So I took the executive decision that we're not giving away pens and lighters anymore, but we'll have pencils and matches. And I mean, our activists didn't love it so much, but I told them, well, you have a story to tell on the election stand, or on this when people come and they complain, then you tell them, well, we have a responsibility for the environment, so we made the executive decision of not using your, I was going to say tax dollars, but that sounds weird now, tax euros to buy something, and that is clearly not, good for the environment. So make that lemonade. I don't want to sound like a constant inspirational quote, but I feel like that's the attitude I want to see.
Thanks, Josh. Can I ask you what Jochen said before, right? I mean, the speed has accelerated. The jobs are more and more specialized, right? I mean, even if you're a tech geek, next year there might be two specialized roles that you're not qualified for. So again, asking about your big team, you have staff there. I mean, I guess you don't have a turnover of 100% each year. So some of those people are there more than 1 year. So how do you deal with that kind of big infrastructure and big staff? How do you deal with that kind of adaptation that is constant these days? How do you keep up with the change that is happening outside?
It's such an interesting question. And so it was funny when you asked me this, the immediate thing that popped into my head is, I know you don't love him, Jochen, Dominic Cummings. Any Dominic Cummings fans?
Oh, no.
And so his whole shtick is this kind of like OODA loop, like observe, orient, decide, act, right? And his whole thing is that like parties of the new right are like way faster to complete this loop, to see what's going on, figure out what you want to do about it, decide, and then do something about it. And they say when you get inside someone's loop, then you're like always going to beat them because they'll never be able to figure out what to do. And I think it's one of the things I think about the political tech thing is when I'm speaking to a lot of people, a lot of parties at this conference, is that like I often feel that like, I don't know, sometimes this is going to sound bad, we've not even hit the observe stage, with a lot of these parties, they're not even like looking at, even like if you look at Netflix or something, right? Like they're not like, they use these tools in their lives and they don't connect them to what political parties are like. And I think the Americans, it's interesting we talk so much about Zoran Mandani's incredibly inspiring campaign, but like in America they have this creative destruction a lot more, where you have these turnover and you have this brutally competitive environment where you have to be better, you have to be smarter, you have to.
And you have operations, right? I mean, it's not a party. I mean, Obama was failed when he moved into the party structure, right?
And so I think the challenge for parties of the mainstream is like what we're trying to do at Labour is to, okay, great, we've tried all of these different things. How do we turn them into infrastructure that we're going to have for the rest of the election, like going forward? And so my challenge is to try and disrupt the party itself, to change the culture, to challenge it, because by default it just wouldn't advance, right? I think at the moment that's the thing that's missing. That's the thing that's missing.
Who are you looking for tech inspiration? You're not allowed to say Democrats.
Oh no, I'm not looking to... Are you kidding? The DNC chair came over and asked me how our tech was going.
Congratulations.
It feels amazing. Sorry, that was really self-satisfied. Where am I looking? Honestly, I think one of the things that I find really interesting at the moment that I'm obsessed with is, obviously, Tech Bro, is the AI labs, and I think how open, particularly Mark Zuckerberg, is being about what his vision for the future is. This year, he started talking about an entirely AI-generated social network. Have you guys used Meta Vibes? It's fascinating. It's like a TikTok, but all of it is entirely AI-generated. He's talked about how he doesn't want, you're not even going to do creative anymore. You're not going to design the videos to go on it anymore. You'll just send some photos of the
Everybody's Googling now. Everybody can see it, yeah.
Like, download it. It's interesting. But like, I think that's fascinating, because then it's like, what is a social media network without the social element? And I think like that kind of, yeah, that's where I wouldn't say inspiration, but that's where like, yeah, I'm digesting that.
Jochen, what about you? Where are you looking for, the next thing, and what do you think, could also be instructive for political parties when it comes to, not like 2030, but the next 18 to 24 months?
Yes, I was lucky that before founding the company, I was in venture capital, and I was also investing in companies, so I still have a very good VC network. And a friend of mine now works at Claude, for example. And exactly like Josh, right? So we're looking towards like, what are these companies doing? What is coming out of AI labs? So it's more like, how can we talk, for example, about agentic platforms and stuff like that. So I'd look at them in different industry that's far away and try more to understand the infrastructure that's behind it. So that's one source. The second source, to be honest, is shout out to our data and AI teams, that we established a meeting where we just talk about stuff that we found interesting. And each week they come up with articles and papers and stuff like that I just read and start to think about, right? So the Democrats are not a source. Like, the times are currently, unfortunately, they are over, where everyone is looking towards the US and saying, okay, what came out of the progressive side there? It's like, they collapsed basically over the last 12 months. They lost completely their voice and the messaging on a general level. So for the last 10 years, and that also makes me sometimes a bit annoyed when I hear people from the US coming now to this conference and talk about that. It's like, yeah, always on campaigning and blah, blah, blah. And I think, like, come on, like, you guys are not doing always on campaigning for the last couple of months, a couple of years, to be honest. And there's, once again, like, if I look towards the technology that I'm interested in and how to adapt it, I always come down to the point that you have allies in the party, right? That you need also to keep going. Because I thought when we started the company 9 years ago that there will be a moment, like, I was 29 when I started, I'm now 39. I said, like, okay, maybe in 10 years, right? Josh and I know us for a long time, like, Fanny and me as well. It's like, people are moving up, right? So now he's CTO, Fanny's moved on, and so on. So I thought, like, okay, they come into decision points. So now they make the decisions, everything's going to be better. Unfortunately not, because they're still constrained in these organizational structures. And if they are 40, for example, and they actually know what social media is, and that's kind of tech from yesterday, they already are so much into the system and the logics and the process and doesn't want to do something wrong. So it is necessary to have these allies and to have conferences like this to be still inspired and still have this energy to push technology and now the next big technological wave, and hopefully we do better than in terms of the last one.
Thank you very much. I saw some nodding faces in the room with the remarks before. I want to take a look at you folks and ask you whether there are any questions at that point. I already see one hand go up. Can I give this mic to the gentleman? And if you have another question, please raise your hand. Please say who you are and ask your question. Here you go.
Hi, Bernie here. A question for Joshua, twofold question. The first one is, how can we young people become you in the way on what you are currently doing, the set of skills you have learned to be where you are? The second one is the talent that you were able to attract. That sort of talent, they tend to be very well paid in the tech ecosystem. And we are talking about like $250,000, $500,000 a year. How do you attract that sort of people to have a 30+ people team at a political party in this case? So yeah.
I second that
you.
question. Please answer that
The
from my
funny,
parties.
the really funny thing that I find about this is like I literally like because when I first had this conversation, I like looked up the annual report of the Labour Party. It's got an annual turnover revenue of about like maybe like 40, 50 million, something like that. It's not small. And I looked up the SPD and it's 100 million euros. So I'm like, what are you guys doing with your money? Where's it all going? Why don't you?
Grüße gehen raus an die SPD. Sorry.
Anyway, sorry, I'm sure there's a good reason for it and I just don't know it. Yeah, such a good question. So to your first point, it's been such an odd career path that I really would find it difficult to say. I think the biggest thing that I think when you're challenging the status quo is having a really strong position of trust, right? And that's like, I came up with the current General Secretary in the Labour Party, and she just kind of knows my face and trusts it. And so like, I hate to say it, this is just how everyone knows how this is how politics works. You need to start being around the party, you need to make friends, you need to understand how people think and how they approach the problem. And then small things, see how they're thinking about a problem, and then where you can come in to solve it. So whether it's, most recent example for us was like the press guy listening to hours and hours of political podcasts every day, and then using Claude Code to build something to automatically transcribe them so you can search them. Find small problems. It's never been a better time to do political tech, ever.
But if I want to become the next Josh Carrington, what do I need to learn today? You know, what would you recommend? How, you know, do I have to stay with the party for years and years and years, or do you think, you know, that's actually not good? I should actually come from the business side. What would you say? What would be the smartest path?
Okay, my hot tip is try and, if there is a data team, get in the data team, because then you're going to get lots of face time with senior people, like right while you're junior. So I think 100% get a data team, get in the data team, social, like build relationships, and that's really easy to do now. AI like makes it much more simple to do analyses, but people don't know that yet. Great arbitrage. And then you need to go out and do other stuff. You need to start new stuff, you need to do interesting interventions, you need to get people's attention, you need to do talks, you need to get used to people, and then while still building your relationships with people in it. I don't think like slowly progressing up the ranks, in my opinion, it doesn't really work, but like just straight ahead of an election, come back in like 18 months out, perfect time to make impact, but don't slog it out between the cycles. Like you're just not going to learn the amount you need to learn.
Jochen, what's your perspective on the skills question? What would you recommend as a preparation for a future CTO job at a political party?
I would definitely agree in terms of data and getting fit there, because that is kind of the step even before you're getting in developers and stuff like that. And in terms of recruiting, there are like, and also what I would say, Josh, for the time that we know each other is show that you can have an impact, right? That you can provide solutions and actionable solutions that make a difference in the organization, right? So what also we did with our companies, that we offered solutions for a problem where the organization didn't have an answer for, and we offered it on a very low price in the beginning to show impact and to gain, once again, trust, right? But in terms of recruiting, it is astonishing for me that this field of political data technologists, let me put it like this, is, I would say in Germany we have maybe 30 up to 50 people who are actually good at it. And we have, I would say, 50% of them who are willing to stay in the political sector, and other ones who are moving away frustrated after a certain time. And the ones who are staying in are the ones who are in for the purpose and for the long run, right? So also in my team, like, I'm not saying that too loud, but they could also have better paid jobs. But they
100%,
right?
My team too, but they do it because they care about the cause.
Yes, they care about the cause, they care about the purpose, they like the stuff that they're working on, and this is getting even more important in the future, right? So if we also think about that, developers and their value is kind of decreasing in terms of coding, which is a big issue, once again, in terms of not build or buy, but buy to build. And that also opens, once again, opportunities. Like, let me put it this way, we had a team 4 years ago of 8 people in data, and now our team of 2.5 FTEs has a higher outcome in their performance than 8 years ago. It's not like back then the people were not good. It's just more like with AI, we can ramp things up and do it way more efficient. And that creates space, and that's also important to add that. it creates space for other things, right? If my creative team, if my developers, if my product managers are not busy with shitty project management in details and bugging and how I implement that or this, it opens up room to think about. And I think it was you, also another talk, who talked about like critical thinking and stuff like that. So I always see it as a capacity builder. It's like I'm happy if our resources, like we can reduce our efforts of 20–30% and get actually more time out of it, and then do meaningful stuff with that time with the team. That actually keeps my people more on board instead of, oh yes, we have to edit this video or we have to clean this database, right? So that's a positive side effect.
So we have 5.
If I just may add, because I think in that case I can add something from my side of the story. So I think you really tackled the two issues when it comes to that. So if you have the motivation to be that, and you happen to encounter a party that is mature enough to understand that this is important, which the status quo for my 75 parties, I think, like, depending on how you count, because they're called differently and they have different portfolios, but I would argue like 4 to 5 out of my 75 have something like that. So clearly, right now, parties haven't realized so much. I think come like two or 3 years from now, those who want to survive, probably that number will have changed. But those who have that and who have realized that this is important, you're like a jackpot. Like if you're willing to work in politics with that skill set, that is like you're gonna be very, very popular.
100%, yeah. My friend who's a developer, literally, like, he had to change his number.
Very good. We're almost out of time. Is there any other question? Yes, there actually are. So let's take those questions, please. Thank you.
So this is also mainly geared towards Joshua. We've heard a lot at the summit about what European digital sovereignty might realistically look like and like the challenges involved and so forth. I'm interested in hearing your perspective on whether you see the Labour Party realigning its priorities or messaging with stronger calls for digital sovereignty, especially given the Starmer administration's recent contracts with American companies like Palantir in the defense and the healthcare space.
Thank you, and we'll take another question from the silver-haired man in the back.
Thank you, man with the cap, to hide the like.
We know each other.
We know each other. I'm Stefan. I'm currently with the Austrian government since recently. My question is, I always want a few positive things on such summits as well. Could it be what you described, that rich countries, big parties are not doing as well with those changes and those new tools? Could it be that scarcity and out-of-the-box thinking, radical out-of-the-box thinking, that underdogs and parties, people, candidates with fewer resources might actually do better, given the new, game of play, the new setup, the new framework? Just a thought.
Great, and I think that's a great question for an end round. So first, Josh, perhaps you take that question, and then the kind of is evolutionary pressure perhaps leading to also bringing innovation, and I've heard this theory that, now with AI, of course, you can build all kinds of things, you can be quicker, you can do much more stuff with fewer resources. So perhaps this helps actually, newer, younger, more innovative players versus the old established elephants. Josh, you go first.
Yeah, totally. Look, to your question, I obviously can't comment on government policy as a member of party staff. I think I can talk about in my role, like how I evaluate software. And so, like, just from a sort of like personal values perspective, I would love to go with like European infrastructure where possible. The challenge is that it's just not there in terms of sophistication and funding behind it. And I think that's the challenge for the European tech ecosystem. If I compare Hetzner with AWS, it's no competition. So I think that's the thing I'd say to that. And then on the question around can smaller teams be moving faster? Totally, 100%. I think one of the big stories about my role that I think is interesting is that a lot of what I do is like, we're a 100-year-old party, a 120-year-old party, and it's actually a classic story of like innovator's dilemma. It's like a startup, it's like a disrupt genuinely, and I know I sound like tech bro here, but it is, I think, genuinely the story of like institutional change is really, really, really hard. And if you start from a small group where you don't have that 3 layers of sign off on a piece of paper floating around on the internal post, you know, like that is the thing that will let you move really quickly. And AI, like with these kind of agentic coding, and I know, I hate how I sound, but genuinely I think is a really transformative time to build. Yeah, especially with the kind of generative models around like images, content. I think, yeah, along with the driving towards fragmentation, I definitely see that as like an emerging piece of the political landscape, where it will just be a lot easier for a very, very small group of people to have the presence of a modern political party. The modern political party currently does with 300 staff and 40,000 volunteers. Yeah, I think that's, and what that means for democracy is a really interesting question, I think.
Thanks a lot, Josh. Funny, you have, again, many different animals in your zoo. Older ones, younger ones, bigger ones, smaller ones. Who do you think stands to benefit the most from the AI revolution, the AI hype that we're seeing right now? Do you think the younger, smaller ones will be able to move quicker, or do the older, more established ones, bigger ones, will they be able to more kind of transform themselves thanks to that?
The short answer is, I mean, and also, I mean, now to be transparent, you, me, the young men from the Austrian government, we, the three of us who founded the political party 13 years ago, and we had nothing, but we had us, and we had, creativity, and we had a lot of obstacles that we just decided to, overcome by outsmarting, the old ones. So clearly, I mean, like just from the history that, or like from our own experience that we've made is, yes, scarcity makes you creative and makes you innovative and is somehow a core trait to an organization that you want to have, and that on the long run helped us. As long as people who have experienced that within our organization are there, then I'm sure we're good. Concerning the big and small, not necessarily, or like the old and new, not necessarily, because I'm going to come back to D66 once again. D66 is called D66 because they were founded in 1966, so that's not a new party. So they have just succeeded to keep their learning organization alive and keep that curiosity and that innovative force alive, but also their major crises throughout the last 20 years have helped them remain that, So yes, of course, you need crises, you need chaos, you need, bad things to keep you going. You're not going to be, like from a comfortable situation, you're not going to be innovative. You're going to think that everything you're doing fine, and it's going to continue. So short answer, yes, of course.
Thank you, Jochen. That brings us directly to the German politics. I mean, I think there's enough crisis to go around right now on all kinds of levels. So to end on a positive note. Do you see a wave of innovation, coming in the next 18 to 24 months? Do you see the pressure will be so strong that basically we will see some fundamental changes for the better?
In the German landscape? I would love to say yes. I'm skeptical, but once again, in terms of, I think that the size plays a big role. And if we look towards a couple of German political parties, like the worst thing that can happen to a political party is a slow decline. And that's what we're seeing all over Europe. Like the big parties from the social side, from the conservative side, if you are in this slow spinning around, getting smaller and smaller, and by election circle after election circle, you're losing, and you're adapting and accepting, okay, the fascists are better with social media, okay, or they are doing better there or here. And this slow decline, it's like there isn't this shock moment. And that's what I'm worried most about, certain political parties in Germany. We saw one party, for example, the left, they had a shock moment before the last election, right, when they split up. And I actually thought, like,
this might kill them, right?
What?
You thought perhaps this might kill them?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, okay, this is just like the old guys in the party, and it's going to go down. And then they found, once again, the power within a small organization, under pressure, under crisis, to get things done again. So it is also to getting more about, once again, the future. It's going to take less resources, as always, and a smaller organization is also always more agile and willing to even intensify their efforts than a big organization that is in a slow decline and it's more kind of, and I think this is, to close there on the positive side, is that I think that there's a time right now where people are more looking towards how I can save the status quo instead of what is in it in the chance up there, right? And that's on many different levels, because the messages are not that positive that surrounding us. But to end on a positive note, and that's once again maybe a little bit of tech pro ways, it's not like, not everything going to be fine and positive in terms of technology and AI, but the reason, that's good, the reason why I founded this company and why I'm in this intersection of political campaigning and social media and social networks since 2008, when the first social network appeared in Germany, is that if you have a window where technology is happening, it's going to have an impact on communication, on campaigning, on citizen society, and on democratic systems. So, and the good thing is, like, every expert here can tell you whatever they want, but at the end, we don't know it. And this opens a window for creativity and for new stuff that is so exciting. So we should take this excitement that technology leads to a change where established players have to question themselves, where things that we with 10, 15, 20 years experience already are saying are going to vanish over the next couple of years. And this is a momentum that has to be used, and it has to be used in an extensive effort to protect a democratic, pluralistic, and progressive society.
Thank you very much, you three. I thought it was wonderful. And if you want to learn how to build big, talk to Josh. If you want to understand what's out there to actually buy, then please go down to the ground floor. I think the most exhibitors are still here. Thanks very much for being with us. And there's another great panel coming up on the question of, is social media dying? So thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the conference.